Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going deep into Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030. You know you've seen all the headlines, but we're going to go way beyond that. We've got, reports,
Right.
analyses, the whole shebang, to really understand how this ambitious plan is actually, reshaping the kingdom. And let me tell you, some of the stuff is mind-blowing. Did you know that they're actually aiming to be like a top 10 global economy? And their sovereign wealth fund, like poised to be the world's biggest. We're talking serious ambition.
Yeah, it's not just about climbing that economic ladder, though. Vision 2030 is really about transforming Saudi Arabia from the ground up.
Hmm.
Society,
Yeah.
culture, global leadership, everything's on the table. It's almost like watching a nation kind of hit fast forward on its evolution, except it's happening right now.
Okay. I'm intrigued already. But before we get lost in the, futuristic skyscrapers and robots, I think we need some context. What sparked this whole Vision 2030 thing in the first place?
Well, picture this. It's 2015, and oil prices are plummeting. For the GCC countries who've built their economies on oil, it's a major shock to the system. These countries used to comfortable budget surpluses suddenly face a collective 160 billion USD deficit. Talk about a wake-up call.
That's not a wake-up call. That's a blaring alarm clock right next to your ear. I can see why they'd be scrambling for a plan B.
Exactly. Vision 2030 is their answer. A bold plan to not just diversify the economy, but to completely reinvent Saudi Arabia for the 21st century.
So it's not just about, finding new ways to make money. It's about a complete national makeover.
Absolutely. Think of it as three pillars holding up this ambitious vision. The first leverages their position. As the heart of the Arab and Islamic worlds, they're aiming to enhance their global standing by building on their unique, religious and cultural influence.
It makes sense. It's like playing to your strengths, right?
Precisely. Then there's the economic pillar. It's all about turning their public investment fund, the PIF, into a global powerhouse. Imagine a fund so big, it could literally reshape global markets.
Okay, now we're talking. And the third pillar.
Third pillar is all about location, location, location. Saudi Arabia sits at the crossroads of Asia, Europe, and Africa. They're looking to leverage that strategic position to become a global trade hub.
So they're literally aiming to be at the center of the world, both economically and geographically. That's a pretty bold vision.
It is, but what's fascinating is that it's not just about these abstract economic targets. Vision 2030 is about improving the lives of Saudi citizens in very tangible ways.
Okay, so let's get down to brass tacks. What does this actually look like for people living in Saudi Arabia? Are we talking flying cars and robot butlers?
Not quite,
Yeah.
but it's still pretty impressive. One major focus is on improving quality of life. Imagine strolling through Riyadh, and it's ranked up there with the most livable cities in the world. They're investing in green spaces, entertainment, cultural events. They even want 3 Saudi cities in the global top 100 for quality of life.
Wow, from oil fields to world-class cities in a single generation. That's a pretty dramatic shift.
It is, and it goes beyond the cities themselves. They're shifting their healthcare focus to prevention and promoting healthier lifestyles, which means encouraging physical activity and creating a culture of well-being.
So they're not just building a beautiful country, they're trying to build a healthy one, too.
Exactly. And they're not forgetting about women either. Empowering women is a key goal of Vision 2030. They want to increase women's workforce participation to 30%. Think about what that means. More women in leadership positions, contributing to the economy, and shaping the future of their country.
That's a huge change, especially considering where they're starting from. It sounds like they're really trying to create a more inclusive society. But let's be realistic, these goals are incredibly ambitious. How are they actually going to achieve all of this? I mean, oil isn't just going to vanish overnight, right?
You're right, it's a massive undertaking. But they're taking a multi-pronged approach to diversifying their economy. And some of their strategies are pretty surprising. They're developing promising sectors like manufacturing, tourism, tech, mining, and get this, renewable energy.
Wait, renewable energy? From the country that practically invented oil dependence, that's a pretty big twist.
It is. They're not just dipping their toes in the water either. They're aiming to become a global leader in renewable energy by 2030. With over 70 renewable energy parks planned, they're even building the world's largest green hydrogen plant.
Okay. Color me intrigued. It sounds like they're going all in on green tech. But surely there must be some serious challenges along the way.
Of course. Shifting an economy away from decades of oil dependency is no walk in the park. There are technological hurdles, the need to train an entirely new workforce. And you could bet there's pushback from those who benefit from the status quo.
You're talking about the people who've always held the power. The ones who might not be so keen on shaking things up.
Exactly. But despite the challenges, they're taking concrete steps. They've opened their first electric vehicle manufacturing plant, the Lucid Group's advanced EV manufacturing plant, and they're attracting global players like Hyundai to build another one.
So they're not just talking about EVs, they're building them. What about tourism? I know they've got incredible historical sites and stunning landscapes. But are they really trying to become a global tourist destination?
They absolutely are.
Yeah.
And they're already seeing impressive results. In fact, they rank second globally for the fastest growth in tourist arrivals in 2023.
Second globally. That's huge. So where are all these tourists going? What are the highlights?
Well, there's the Red Sea Project, which welcomed its first tourists in 2023. Imagine pristine beaches, luxurious resorts, and a focus on sustainable tourism. Then there's Aula. With its ancient tombs and stunning rock formations, it's been recognized as a leading cultural tourism destination. And they're not stopping there. They're developing their royal reserves with a target of 2.3 million visitors annually by 2030.
The royal reserves. Okay, now you've really got my attention. Paint me a picture. What are we talking about here?
Imagine vast, untouched landscapes teeming with wildlife. Arabian or Cheriks, gazelles, even leopards in some areas. It's like stepping back in time to a world untouched by modern development.
That sounds incredible. But how do they plan to balance conservation with tourism? It's a tricky tightrope to walk.
You're right. It's a delicate balance. And that's actually something we'll dive deeper into later. But first, let's shift gears for a moment and talk about another fascinating aspect of Vision 2030. Their push for a more transparent and accountable government.
Okay, so it's not just about the glitz and glamour of new cities and tourist attractions. They're actually trying to reform the way the government operates.
Exactly. They're streamlining processes,
Yeah.
increasing accountability, and empowering citizens to have a greater say in their future. And it's not just talk. They've seen a significant jump in their ranking on the Government Effectiveness Index.
Well, that's certainly promising, but I'm curious, what does this look like in practice? What specific reforms are they implementing?
Well, they're embracing digitization in a big way. Take the Tawakalna app, for example. It's like a one-stop shop for government services. Everything from renewing your ID to scheduling appointments, all at your fingertips.
Hold on, that sounds strangely familiar. You mean like how we use apps for everything these days? Ordering food, booking flights, even finding a date.
Exactly. Except in this case, it's about accessing essential government services, making life easier for citizens, and cutting down on bureaucratic hurdles.
Okay. That's pretty slick. I can see how that would boost efficiency and make things more convenient for everyone. But beyond digitization, what else is driving this push for transparency and accountability?
Another key area is privatization. They're increasing private sector participation in sectors like healthcare and education, aiming to boost efficiency and innovation.
So they're taking a page from the business world, applying those principles to government operations. Less red tape, more results-oriented.
You got it. And they're also learning from past mistakes. They're rehabilitating economic cities that didn't quite live up to their potential, like the King Abdullah Financial District. And they're establishing special economic zones with tailored regulations to attract foreign capital.
It's like they're saying, we're not afraid to admit what didn't work and try something new. That's a refreshing approach. But it's not just about attracting foreign investors, right? They're also focusing on empowering their own people.
Absolutely. And one way they're doing that is by empowering the nonprofit sector. They've set a target of a 5% contribution to GDP from this sector. That's a huge increase from where they are now and speaks volumes about their commitment to social development.
5%, that's massive. But I'm having trouble picturing what that looks like. How do they plan to make that happen?
It involves creating a more supportive regulatory environment, encouraging endowments to fund the sector, and promoting a culture of philanthropy. They're also streamlining volunteer deployment through the National Volunteer Portal.
Wow, so they're really trying to create a more engaged and empowered citizenry. It's not just top-down, it's a bottom-up approach as well. But let's talk about Saudi Arabia's global ambitions. They clearly want to be seen as more than just an oil producer. How are they positioning themselves on the world stage?
They're making some bold moves. For starters, they're hosting World Expo 2030 in Riyadh. It's a massive platform to showcase their advancements to the world. A chance to say, this is the new Saudi Arabia.
Hosting the World Expo, that's a major coup. What else is on the agenda?
They're also bidding for the 2034 FIFA World Cup, showcasing their passion for sports and their commitment to world-class infrastructure. Imagine the world's eyes on Saudi Arabia, watching their national team compete on home turf.
It's like they're throwing a coming out party. For a nation that's undergoing a radical transformation. But it's not just about prestige, right? There must be strategic goals behind these bids.
Of course. These events are an opportunity to boost their tourism industry, attract foreign investment, and showcase a modern, dynamic Saudi Arabia to the world. It's nation branding on a grand scale.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture, but there's one question that keeps nagging at me. Given their reliance on fossil fuels, can they really become a leader in sustainability? It seems a bit like a contradiction.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the Saudi Green Initiative, or SGI, suggests they're serious about this. They've committed to achieving net zero emissions by 2060 and are investing heavily in renewable energy.
Net zero by 2060, that's a pretty ambitious target for an oil-producing nation. What are some of the key initiatives under the SGI?
Well, one of the most striking is their plan to plant a staggering 10 billion trees across the kingdom. Imagine the impact on air quality, biodiversity, even the visual landscape. They're also focusing on land rehabilitation, developing renewable energy sources, and promoting sustainable practices across all sectors.
10 billion trees. That's enough to make even the most skeptical environmentalist raise an eyebrow. It sounds like they're trying to greenify the entire country.
Yeah.
But can they realistically balance these ambitious economic goals with their social and environmental commitments?
That's the challenge, isn't it? To reconcile economic growth with environmental sustainability and social progress. It's a balancing act that many nations struggle with. But the scale of change they're aiming for is truly remarkable.
It really is. And it'll be fascinating to see how it all plays out. But we've covered a lot of ground already, and I'm eager to dive deeper into the specifics. There's still so much more to explore.
There is. We've talked about like the broad strokes, but the real magic is in the details.
Yeah.
Those aha moments where you realize just how much is happening under the surface.
I'm all ears. Hit me with those mind-blowing details. What's really caught your eye as you've been, digging into all of this?
Let's start with their push to become a global logistics hub. It's not just about building fancy ports and airports. It's about creating a seamless flow of goods and services across continents. Think of it like upgrading from dial-up internet to fiber optic. They're completely overhauling the system.
Okay, I'm getting a mental image of super efficient cargo ships zipping across the Red Sea and high-speed trains connecting cities. But how do we know it's actually working?
Well, for one, they've jumped from 55th to 38th place in World Bank's Logistics Performance Index. That's a huge leap. And in Lloyd's List container handling ranking, they've gone from 24th to 16th. These rankings tell you they're not just playing around, they're making serious progress.
Those are some impressive stats, but what's fueling this progress? What are the key projects that are making this happen?
One standout example is the Jeddah Islamic Port. It's a shining example of their commitment to sustainability and efficiency. It even won Best Port at the International Green Shipping Summit. And get this, Maersk, the global logistics giant, is developing its largest Middle Eastern logistics hub. Right there.
Wow. So they're attracting the big players and gaining international recognition. It sounds like Jeddah is becoming a major hub in this whole logistics revolution. What else are they doing to solidify their position?
They're creating special economic zones, like the one at Jeddah Islamic Port, which is huge, 225,000 square meters, and powered entirely by renewable energy. Plus, they're establishing new economic corridors, like the one linking India, the Middle East, and Europe. Imagine the possibilities.
These corridors sound incredible. It's like a modern-day Silk Road, connecting the world through trade and innovation.
You got it. And don't forget about their air transport system. They've launched Riyadh Air, a new national airline, which is a big step towards cementing their position as a global transport hub.
So they're thinking big, land, sea, and air. It's a truly integrated approach to logistics. But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the government's transformation. We touched on it earlier, but I'm curious to delve a bit deeper.
Well, one of their main goals is to create a more efficient and effective government. They want less bureaucracy, more streamlined services, and a faster turnaround time for everything.
Sounds like a dream come true for anyone who's ever had to deal with government paperwork, but how are they actually making this happen?
They've digitized a massive amount of real estate documents, which streamlines access and makes transactions much smoother. Now it only takes 60 minutes to register real estate electronically.
Wow, 60 minutes. That's faster than ordering a pizza in some places. I can see how that would make a huge difference for businesses and individuals alike. But what about other areas of government? Are they applying the same efficiency-first approach across the board?
Absolutely. They're embracing the concept of shared services across different government agencies. This means centralizing common functions, streamlining operations, and ultimately saving a lot of money.
It's like applying those classic business principles,
Yeah.
efficiency, collaboration, optimization,
Okay.
to government operations.
Precisely. And it's paying off. They've already saved a whopping 9.33 billion USD, and they're aiming for 15.2 billion USD in savings. That's money that can be reinvested in other areas, like education, healthcare,
Yeah.
or those ambitious green initiatives we talked about.
Okay, so they're saving money, streamlining processes, and making things easier for citizens. Sounds like a win-win situation. But let's not forget about transparency and accountability. Are they making progress on those fronts?
They are. They've introduced the Quam program, which is all about increasing spending efficiency and making sure resources are allocated responsibly. It's about creating a culture of accountability
Mm-hmm.
within the government.
I like it. It's about making sure every rial is spent wisely and making a real difference. But what about the role of citizens in all of this? Are they becoming more engaged in the process?
Absolutely. Remember that goal of a 5% contribution to GDP
Yeah.
from the nonprofit sector? Well, they're already at 0.87%
Yeah.
and making steady progress towards that ambitious target. This tells you that civil society is becoming more active and engaged in shaping the future of their country.
It's great to see that they're not just relying on top-down government initiatives, but also fostering a culture of civic engagement and participation. But what about security? We can't talk about a thriving society without addressing that, especially in a region that's often perceived as volatile.
You're right, security is paramount, and they've made significant strides in that area. Their Comprehensive Security Perception Index is currently at 2.5, exceeding their target of 1.4. This suggests that people feel safer and more secure, which is essential for any society to flourish.
That's reassuring to hear. It sounds like they're creating an environment where people can focus on building a better future without constantly worrying about safety and security. But let's talk about those quality of life improvements we discussed earlier. Are those ambitious goals actually translating into tangible changes for people on the ground?
They are. One area where you can really see this is in public spaces. They've already exceeded their target for public space per capita. Right now, it's at 6.16 square meters, compared to a target of 4.65.
So more parks, green spaces, and recreational areas for people to enjoy. That's fantastic, especially in a country known for its vast desert landscapes.
Exactly. And it's not just about creating pretty spaces. It's about fostering a sense of community, encouraging social interaction, and promoting healthier lifestyles. But they're also making significant investments in their transportation network, with a focus on both safety and efficiency.
Okay, tell me more about this, because traffic congestion and road safety are often major challenges in rapidly developing cities. I'm curious how they're tackling these issues.
Well, for starters, they've seen a remarkable decrease in their road traffic death rate. Between 2016 and 2022, it dropped from 28.8 to 13.3 deaths per 100,000 people. That's a huge improvement.
So that is a dramatic improvement. How are they achieving such a significant reduction in fatalities?
It's a combination of factors: investing in infrastructure improvements, updating regulations, stricter enforcement of traffic laws, and promoting public transportation. They've got initiatives like the Maka Bus Project, which serves a staggering 100 million beneficiaries annually.
100 million beneficiaries. That's more than the entire population of some countries. It sounds like they're really serious about getting people out of their cars and onto public transport.
They are. And they've got an even bigger project in the works, a public transport system that will connect over 200 cities and governorates.
Wow, that's ambitious. What's so special about this new system?
It's a massive investment in an eco-friendly transportation solution. We're talking about a fleet of advanced buses expected to serve around 6 million passengers annually. It's about reducing congestion, improving air quality, and creating a more connected society.
Less traffic, cleaner air, and a more connected country. Sign me up. But let's not forget about the cultural and entertainment scene. A vibrant society is about more than just efficient infrastructure and safe roads. What are they doing to enrich the lives of their citizens, beyond the practical necessities?
You're absolutely right, and they're not neglecting this aspect at all. They've blown past their targets. For cultural events and entertainment venues, they aimed for 2,093 entertainment venues and ended up with a whopping 3,934.
So more concerts, festivals, art exhibitions, live performances, something for everyone.
Exactly. They're also revitalizing historical sites, like the At Tarif district in Diriyah, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's a stunning example of traditional Najdi architecture and a window into Saudi Arabia's rich cultural heritage.
Diriyah is breathtaking. I remember seeing pictures
Mm.
and being awestruck by its beauty. It must be a major draw for tourists who want to experience the authentic heart of Saudi Arabia.
It is, and they're making it easier than ever for pilgrims to experience these cultural treasures. By streamlining arrivals and enhancing services, they've developed the Nusuk platform, which provides pilgrims with seamless access to a range of services in multiple languages. It's like having a personal guide in your pocket.
That's fantastic. Making the pilgrimage more accessible and enjoyable is a wonderful initiative. But I'm also curious about contemporary art and creativity. Are they supporting modern forms of expression alongside their efforts to preserve their heritage?
They are. They've launched the Islamic Arts Biennale, a major event that showcases the work of both Saudi and international artists. It's a celebration of creativity and a platform for cultural exchange.
That's awesome. It's like they're saying, we're not just guardians of our past, we're also creators of our future.
Hmm.
And what about sports? It's a huge part of any vibrant society. What are they doing to promote athletics and a healthy lifestyle?
They've been busy on that front, too. They built new sports facilities for football clubs and seen incredible growth in sports development, establishing over 110 sports clubs in various fields.
They're investing in both professional and amateur sports, which is fantastic. But are they also supporting female athletes? We talked earlier about empowering women in society, and I'd love to see that reflected in the sports arena as well.
Absolutely. They've launched the first women's volleyball league. Huge step forward. It sends a powerful message about inclusion and opportunity, showing young girls that they can pursue their athletic dreams, just like their male counterparts.
That's amazing. It's those kinds of initiatives that really signal a shift in societal norms. But let's talk about healthcare for a moment. We touched on it briefly, but it's such a fundamental aspect of a nation's well-being. How is Vision 2030 impacting the healthcare system?
They're prioritizing a shift towards preventative care, aiming to keep people healthy, rather than just treating them when they're sick. And they're making significant investments in improving healthcare services for all citizens.
I like that approach. Prevention is always better than cure. But what are some tangible examples of this transformation in action? Are they seeing positive results?
They are. Average life expectancy has risen to 78.1 years in 2023, up from 74 years in 2016.
That's a significant increase. It suggests that people are not only living longer, but also healthier lives. What specific initiatives are driving this progress?
They're expanding healthcare coverage, with the Healthcare Services Coverage Index reaching 96.4% in 2023. And they're embracing digital solutions, like the Sahadi platform.
The Sahadi platform, tell me more about that. It sounds intriguing.
It's like a virtual health hub. You can book appointments, access medical prescriptions and reports, even connect with your family physician, all through the platform.
Wow. That's incredibly convenient. It's like having a personal healthcare assistant in your pocket. But are they also focusing on medical advancements and research? Or is it primarily about improving access to existing services?
They're making strides in medical advancements as well. They successfully performed the kingdom's first Syncardia total artificial heart transplant.
Wait, a total artificial heart transplant?
Yeah.
That's incredible. It sounds like something straight out of a science fiction movie.
It's a huge achievement. It shows they're committed to pushing the boundaries of medical innovation. They're also pioneering new techniques in heart disease treatment, like the pulse field ablation technique for atrial fibrillation.
Wow. They're not just catching up. They're aiming to be at the forefront of medical technology and treatment. But let's not forget about the economic side of things. We've talked a lot about diversification and the challenges of moving away from oil dependency. Are they making real progress on those ambitious goals?
They are. The non-oil economy contributed 50% of GDP in 2023. That's a major milestone, and shows that their diversification efforts are bearing fruit.
50%, that's huge. So their economy is no longer solely reliant on oil. But what sectors are driving this growth?
It's a diverse mix: manufacturing, tourism, technology, mining, and renewable energy. It's like they're firing on all cylinders, exploring every avenue to build a more resilient and sustainable economy.
We've touched on some of these sectors already, but I'd love to delve a bit deeper into each one. Let's start with manufacturing. We talked about the electric vehicle plant, but what other major projects are in the works?
They've partnered with Hyundai to build another automotive manufacturing plant, a joint venture that will produce 50,000 vehicles annually, including both internal combustion engine, ICE, and electric vehicles, EVs.
So they're not completely ditching traditional cars just yet. They're taking a more gradual approach to the transition. What about tourism? We know they're seeing a boom in tourist arrivals, but what are the specific projects that are attracting visitors?
They're developing some truly unique and exciting destinations. There's the Red Sea project, which we talked about earlier, with its focus on luxury and sustainability. Then there's Aula, with its ancient history and breathtaking landscapes. And of course, there's NEOM, which is in a category all its own.
NEO. Now, that's a name that sparks the imagination. What's the latest on this futuristic megacity?
It's a bold experiment in sustainable urban development. They're incorporating cutting-edge technologies, renewable energy sources, and innovative design principles to create a model for future cities.
It sounds like they're trying to leapfrog into a new era of urban living. But what about the tech sector? Are they making any significant investments in that area?
They're establishing themselves as a major cloud computing hub. They've attracted some big players, including Microsoft, Oracle, Zoom, and Huawei, who have invested a total of 4.4 billion USD in the kingdom.
So they're not just consumers of technology, they're positioning themselves as a regional leader in cloud computing. But what about artificial intelligence? That seems to be the next frontier. And I'm curious to know if they're investing in AI development.
They're actively developing their AI capabilities, and they're not doing too badly. They actually rank first globally in the Government AI Strategy Index. They're hosting AI-focused events, partnering with global tech leaders, and investing in local talent development.
They're taking a comprehensive approach to AI development, but what about the mining sector? I haven't heard much about that yet.
The mining sector has immense potential, and they're just starting to tap into it. They've discovered new mineral deposits worth an estimated 2.4 billion USD, highlighting the vast untapped resources they have.
Okay. So they're sitting on a gold mine,
Are they?
literally. But how are they going about developing this sector responsibly and sustainably?
They've implemented a number of initiatives to attract investment and encourage sustainable practices. They've got the mining investment law, which streamlines the licensing process and encourages foreign investment. And they've launched the Mining Exploration Incubator Program, which supports small and medium-sized enterprises and entrepreneurs focused on sustainable exploration.
So they're making it easier to invest in mining, while also ensuring that it's done in an environmentally responsible way. But let's not forget about renewable energy, which is a cornerstone of their diversification strategy. What's the latest on that front?
They're making serious progress towards their goal of generating 50% of their energy from renewable sources by 2030. They're developing over 70 renewable energy parks across the country, including the world's largest green hydrogen plant, which we talked about earlier.
That green hydrogen plant is a game changer. It has the potential to position them as a global leader in clean energy exports. But let's talk about the financial sector for a moment, because all these ambitious projects require a strong and stable financial system. To back them up, what's the state of their financial sector?
They're making significant strides there as well. The Public Investment Fund, or PIF, is playing a crucial role in driving economic diversification and attracting foreign capital.
We've mentioned the PIF a few times, but I'd love to understand its role more clearly. It sounds like it's more than just a sovereign wealth fund. It's almost like an engine driving the entire Vision 2030 agenda.
You could say that. They're managing a diverse portfolio of investments in high-growth sectors, both domestically and internationally. They're not just chasing profits. They're strategically investing in projects that align with Vision 2030's goals.
So they're investing for impact, not just return.
Exactly. And they're also focused on supporting the private sector and fostering local content development. They've launched initiatives like the Musahama program, which aims to enhance local content, and private sector competitiveness.
It's like they're creating a virtuous cycle, attracting foreign investment while simultaneously empowering local businesses and entrepreneurs to participate in this economic transformation. But what about their stock market? Is it attracting investors and reflecting this positive growth trajectory?
Absolutely. They've seen a significant increase in financial market listings, exceeding their targets for both 2023 and 2025. This tells you that investors have confidence in the Saudi economy and see a lot of potential for growth.
That's a great sign. But what about government debt? High levels of debt can sometimes hinder economic growth. Are they managing their finances responsibly?
They've been very prudent in managing their finances. Their existing government debt instruments listing reached 21.73 billion USD in 2023. That's a manageable level, especially given the scale of their investments and the size of their economy.
So they're not racking up massive debts to fund these ambitious projects. That's reassuring. But what about small and medium-sized enterprises, or SMEs? We haven't talked much about them, but they often play a crucial role in driving economic growth and creating jobs. How are they faring in this new economic landscape?
SMEs are booming. The number of SMEs in the kingdom has doubled since the launch of Vision 2030.
Wow. A doubling of SMEs. That's incredible. What's driving this surge in entrepreneurial activity?
They're providing robust support for SMEs, recognizing their importance in diversifying the economy and creating jobs. They've launched initiatives like the Sharik program, which encourages large companies to collaborate with and mentor SMEs. It's about fostering a more collaborative and supportive ecosystem for small businesses to thrive.
I love that approach. It's not just about throwing money at the problem. It's about creating an environment where small businesses can access the resources and mentorship they need to succeed. But let's talk about housing for a moment. Affordable housing is a major concern in many rapidly growing economies. How are they addressing this challenge?
They've made significant progress in expanding homeownership opportunities. The homeownership rate among citizens reached 63.74% in 2023.
That's a really impressive figure. But what specific measures are they taking to make housing more affordable? Are they providing subsidies, low-interest loans, or other forms of financial assistance?
They've implemented a range of programs to improve financing options, make it easier for families to purchase homes, and support real estate developers. It's a multifaceted approach aimed at making homeownership a reality for more Saudi citizens.
That's fantastic. But what about those who are most vulnerable, the families who might struggle to afford a home, even with these programs in place? Are there safety nets for them?
Absolutely. The housing program works with the nonprofit sector to ensure that families in critical need have access to adequate housing. It's about recognizing that everyone deserves a safe and stable place to live.
That's really heartening to hear. It sounds like they're trying to create a more inclusive society where everyone has a chance to thrive, regardless of their income level. But let's talk about education for a moment. We know that a skilled workforce is essential for driving economic diversification and innovation. How are they investing in education and training to prepare their citizens for the jobs of the future?
They're making significant investments in education, focusing on developing a workforce equipped with the skills needed for the 21st century economy.
What are some examples of these investments? Because education is a long-term investment that pays dividends for generations to come. I'm curious to know what specific areas they're prioritizing.
One example is the Fuel program, which aims to train a whopping 100,000 citizens in digital jobs within its first year. They're also focusing on bridging the gap between education and the demands of the labor market, with initiatives like their vocational guidance program.
It's fantastic that they're not just focusing on traditional academic subjects,
Yeah.
but also equipping young people with practical skills that will make them more employable and ready to contribute to the digital economy. But what about the arts and culture? We talked earlier about preserving heritage and fostering creativity. Are they making any significant investments in these areas?
They are. They're supporting the development of cultural institutions, promoting artistic expression, and investing in the preservation of their rich cultural heritage.
That's wonderful because a nation's culture is its soul, its unique identity. It's what sets them apart on the global stage. What are some examples of these cultural initiatives?
Well, they've established the Royal Institute of Traditional Arts, which promotes traditional arts and crafts, ensuring that these skills and traditions are passed down to future generations. And they're actively documenting and preserving their urban heritage, recognizing the importance of safeguarding their historical legacy.
It's great to see that they're striking a balance between preserving the past and embracing the future. But let's talk about their global ambitions for a moment. We know they want to play a more prominent role on the world stage. But beyond hosting major events, how are they achieving this?
They're actively engaged in global diplomacy, participating in international organizations, and taking a leadership role in addressing global challenges.
We've talked about their bids for the World Expo and the FIFA World Cup. But what other initiatives are shaping their global presence? What are some examples of their leadership on the world stage?
Well, they were recently reelected as president of the Executive Council of the UN World Tourism Organization. That's a pretty big deal. It shows that they're being recognized for their contributions to the global tourism industry and their commitment to sustainable tourism practices.
That's a significant achievement. It signals that they're not just focused on their own domestic tourism industry, but also on shaping the future of global tourism in a responsible and sustainable way. But what about their efforts to promote sustainability on a global scale? Climate change is a challenge that transcends borders, and I'm curious to know how they're contributing to the global fight against climate change.
They're actively participating in international climate negotiations and are implementing ambitious plans to reduce their own carbon footprint.
We've talked about the Saudi Green Initiative, but are there any other specific examples of their commitment to global sustainability.
Well, they're investing heavily in renewable energy projects, including that massive green hydrogen plant we talked about earlier. They're also working to increase the energy efficiency of their industries, which will have a ripple effect throughout the global supply chain.
So, they're leading by example, demonstrating that a country heavily reliant on fossil fuels can still make significant strides towards a cleaner and more sustainable future. It's inspiring to see.
It is. And it's not just about grand gestures and ambitious targets. They're making tangible progress on the ground, implementing practical solutions, and collaborating with partners around the world.
This has been an incredible journey so far, exploring the complexities and contradictions of Vision 2030. It's truly remarkable to witness the sheer scale and ambition of this transformative agenda.
It's a fascinating case study in national development, and we've only just scratched the surface.
It's mind-boggling to think how much they're trying to accomplish, in such a short time frame. But I have to admit, I'm still a bit skeptical about their sustainability claims. I mean, it's easy to talk a big game. But can they really walk the walk, given their history?
Yeah, it's a healthy skepticism to have. Don't just take their word for it. Look at the actions. What I find interesting is how deeply intertwined the Saudi Green Initiative is with, every aspect of Vision 2030. It's not just a PR stunt or a side project. It's woven into the very fabric of their vision for the future.
Okay. So how does that play out in reality? Give me some concrete examples of how this sustainability focus is actually shaping their projects and initiatives.
Take NEOM, that futuristic megacity we keep mentioning. It's not just about flying cars and robots. It's about creating a model for sustainable urban living. They're designing it to be powered entirely by renewable energy, with green transportation, sustainable building materials, and even vertical farms, to reduce their reliance on traditional agriculture.
So it's like a living laboratory for sustainable urban development, a glimpse into what a truly green city might look like.
Exactly. And then there are the royal reserves, those vast protected areas they're opening up to tourism. They're facing a real challenge there, balancing the desire to attract visitors with the need to preserve these pristine ecosystems.
That's a tough balancing act. So how are they navigating that?
They're implementing strict environmental regulations, investing in habitat restoration, and promoting ecotourism practices that minimize the impact on these delicate environments. It's about responsible tourism, not mass tourism. It's about showcasing the natural beauty of Saudi Arabia without destroying it in the process.
It's great that they're taking a long-term perspective, thinking about the impact on future generations. But let's talk about a specific initiative that really captured my attention. That plan to plant 10 billion trees. That's such a staggering number, I have to ask. Is it even realistic?
It's incredibly ambitious, no doubt. But they're not just throwing seeds into the desert and hoping for the best. They're approaching it strategically, focusing on native species that are well-suited to the arid climate. They're utilizing advanced technologies, like drone planting, to cover vast areas efficiently. And they're involving local communities in the effort, which creates a sense of ownership and ensures the long-term sustainability of the project.
It's like a massive reforestation campaign, a green wave sweeping across the desert. But what about the water? Won't that be a huge challenge in such an arid environment?
You've hit on a crucial point. Water scarcity is a major issue in the region, and it's something they're acutely aware of. That's why they're investing heavily in water conservation technologies, including desalination plants, wastewater treatment facilities, and even cloud seeding to enhance rainfall.
Cloud seeding? That sounds like something out of a science fiction novel. How does that work?
It's a weather modification technique where they disperse substances into the air to encourage cloud formation and precipitation. It's not a perfect solution, but it's one way they're trying to increase their water resources and make this ambitious tree planting project feasible.
It's amazing to see how they're blending cutting-edge technology with ancient wisdom to tackle these environmental challenges. But their ambitions extend beyond their own borders, right? They're aiming to become a global leader in green energy exports as well.
Absolutely. They're not just looking to greenify their own country. They want to export their green expertise to the world. The green hydrogen plant is a prime example of this ambition. It has the potential to make them a major player in the global clean energy market.
It's a bold vision, but one that could have a ripple effect throughout the world. But given their heavy reliance on oil revenue, is there a risk of internal resistance to these green initiatives? I mean, change can be disruptive, and not everyone welcomes it with open arms.
You're right. There's always a risk of pushback from those who benefit from the status quo. The oil industry has been a dominant force in Saudi Arabia for decades. And there are powerful interests that might resist this shift towards a greener future.
So how are they navigating that potential conflict? Are they engaging with those who might be resistant to change?
They're trying to bring everyone on board by highlighting the long-term economic benefits of diversification and the importance of positioning Saudi Arabia for a post-oil future. It's a delicate balancing act, but the leadership seems determined to make this transition as smooth as possible.
It's a fascinating dynamic to observe, but let's bring it back to the individual, the average Saudi citizen. How are they experiencing this transformation? Are they embracing these changes, or is there a sense of apprehension about the future?
From what I've gathered, there's a palpable sense of excitement and anticipation, especially among young people. They see Vision 2030 as an opportunity to create a more dynamic, vibrant, and globally connected Saudi Arabia, a country that's not just defined by its oil reserves, but by its innovation, its culture, and its contributions to the world.
It's like a generational shift, a sense of hope and possibility that's driving this transformation. But there must also be anxieties, concerns about the pace and scale of change. Not everyone is comfortable with such a rapid and dramatic transformation.
Of course, change can be unsettling, especially when it's happening on such a grand scale. There are concerns about job security, cultural preservation, and the potential disruption of traditional ways of life. It's important to acknowledge these anxieties and address them in a sensitive and inclusive way.
Yeah. It's a reminder that even the most well-intentioned plans can have unintended consequences. And it's crucial to listen to the voices of those who might be most impacted by these changes. But overall, it seems like there's a sense of optimism, a belief that Vision 2030 is charting a course towards a brighter future for Saudi Arabia.
It's a bold experiment, a leap of faith into a future that's still being written. And it's a reminder that even nations deeply rooted in tradition can embrace change and chart a new course for themselves. It'll be fascinating to watch how this story unfolds in the years to come.
It truly has been an incredible journey, exploring the complexities and contradictions of Vision 2030. We've seen ambition, innovation, and a willingness to challenge conventional thinking. It's been a masterclass in national transformation.
And for our listeners, this is just the beginning of your own deep dive into this fascinating topic. We encourage you to explore the sources we've used, dig deeper, ask questions, and form your own conclusions. The future of Saudi Arabia and its impact on the world is a story that's still being written.
And one that we'll all be watching with great interest. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030.
Until next time, keep exploring.